How's it going out there, guys? Welcome back to another Soul Days. All right, let's jump right into the charts. We are going to start with Bitcoin. If you're new to the show, this is the same chart we've mapped out about 3 weeks ago already. Haven't changed any of the lines, so we're following the same read, using the thirds. I built our angles on some major trends, and I use those to build out what we have on a time scale using a speed resistance. But you can see here that we were following this support really well until we dipped down into the lower third, and now we're coming back up. So we've been descending the mountain peak for quite a while. And does that mean that we got massive, major moves up ahead? It was likely that we were going to be guided up here, but this is definitely really nice to see for Bitcoin. And it's giving us maybe a stronger and stronger indication that C on the 3-point side in the long term had concluded, and we may not be actually needing to see confirmation on the wave 5. You can see how the speed resistance works out on the thirds. When you spread it out, our angles stay the same, so to give you a good readout on the logarithm. But you can see it's following trends still really well on the behavior side, and all our patterns are indicating that we're in impact mode right now. Major activity, arguable that confidence is re-entering the market, and I'm gonna highlight some things that might be continuing to tell us that's what's happening. You know, as we've been discussing over the past few shows, the type of news that sort of comes out at certain times in cycles, and how you want to read those would really determine what you're getting out of, or what you're interpreting out of the market. So here's a different view. We noted that we'd be trending in this channel here, 17.5 and 21.5. However, a couple of shows ago, about 4 days ago, I mapped out these trend angles for us, again based on the thirds and the speed resistance, to give us a good forecast on what was going to happen, a good readout. So we dipped right on top of our bottom third line here, our fan out of resistance, and building out this trend line or trend angle that should stay the same on the repeat log. Gives us a good time point schedule to see where we could have a reversal. And as we noted on behavior, we're hitting a 3-point. We had a nice downward trend, right, which should start to indicate with these trading flats that at some point we're going to expect some kind of reverse in market behavior. And so that's what led to me mapping this out on the show a few days ago or more, and I put this angle here based on past speed resistances to create a fan out and give us a forecast. So we shot up and hit the top of our channel right here, and we actually broke it. So beautiful. Boom. Amazing. And right on this behavior line too, right? So this was wave 5 that we were waiting to confirm here. If you were waiting for confirmation, we were looking at wave 5. You were likely looking at wave 5 to finish off, taking us down lower to continue to eat into wave 1 on our history side. All right, see if we can pull it up. Well, so wave 1 here, we were waiting for wave 5 to conclude and eat a little bit deeper into our wave 1. And if you've been watching the show for quite a while now, we noted that in the beginning few weeks, or at least the beginning 2 weeks of September, we'd see some more downturn, which would result in a cleaner looking wave 5 finish off. However, we did map out later that on the 3-point longer term schedule, we hit C on the corrective side of the Elliott wave. If you can see it better there. So we hit scheduled C, right? And it ate nearly 10% into wave 1, which is just about enough to satisfy that rule. However, it was a possibility that 5 was looking like a stronger trend, and we were looking for confirmation on 5, which would take us back further into a little bit further into September, a little lower. Is that out of play? I mean, so looking at the 1 month, right, against the total history here, we still have a red candle, and we're still working up on this third resistance fan, and we hit it. So for me, that's indicating that we still are on a behavior, we're still working on this behavior trend here, the overlying behavior trend. But on the midterm and the short term we just looked at, but on the midterm, let's go back. So on midterm, no, we've flattened out here, and it's taking us on the other side of our third on this speed resistance fan. We've touched our major resistance read out by the Fibonacci and bounced back up. But we hit the roof here, right, on our speed resistance on the time schedule. We basically maxed out right now. But we broke this channel. So I'd be looking for a better readout on the log side. Right? So we stretch it out here for the midterm. What our speed resistance is telling us is that on a readout, I'm seeing another third build here, which we could, if we did note yesterday that it's possible, two shows ago, before we drew out these lines, or after we drew out these lines, that it was very likely that we'd break or start to break or try to break this perforated trend line, this greater perforated trend line here that we've been running against for quite a while. And I mapped this out about really at the top of the show, start of the show, which was about 3 weeks or more ago. So it looks to me like we're beginning to open up new trends, and we did actually create a solid reversal here on the map on behavior. And a lot of the macro news, or at least crypto news, might indicate that market has turned to welcome back some confidence. Looks like crypto's giving us a hug again, right? And so again, when I'm stretching it out, we broke channel here. We touched the major resistance, but we didn't touch the bottom of the channel that we believed that we'd be channeling in. We did note there should have been a reversal when it happened. So if behavior is mapping out the way it's supposed to, or the way it is, not the way it's supposed to, but well, I mean, if you argue, it's based on a universal trend, and that's why we use fib sequences and math and ratios and stuff. We look like we want to create a new layer up here, and it could be about time now that breaking this greater trend here. Could be time for us to be starting to look at a whole different situation now, which is extremely exciting. That's exactly what we've been looking at and pretty much calling for on this show, is that we've been preparing for some massive moves, some massive turn of events here in crypto, and Bitcoin leads the way every time, and I don't think this is an exception here, right? So if something was going to be telling us, that's why we got the readout here, that's why we drew the line here, and it slid up right up on that ramp, rocket fire, ready for blast off. So looking at a cleaner look here, what's our new pet, right? What's our pet line here? What are we trying to do now that we're indicating new trends? So we'll start to figure that out, right? But on this softer resistance here, which is looking like a hard support, or I mean a hard resistance now, if we're bouncing off of it again, we could pressure up into this channel further deeper into the time schedule, put us underneath our third, and bring us back over up here. All right, so let's check out the classic. I love this chart. It looks like insanity, but part of it is because I'm not cleaning it up. I'm just keeping all the lines, and you know, from the very beginning, this has been mapped out from more than from before I started the show. So five or 6 weeks ago, these are the same trend lines I've been building off the history here since May. And if you guys have been fairly recently following the show, you know, we were mapping this out on the show like way back here, and I drew this line out and around here or so, and yeah, and Little Classic followed it really nicely and continued up. So what the point of that was to show where the speed resistance fan would fan out to, and that's why all these lines. And speed resistance, I'm building it off of thirds on trend angles, and also a time schedule to give me a good read on when things should happen, right? So we hit the top of the mid layer of our third resistance fan, went underneath, which usually indicates if we're in a channel here, we're gonna pop back over it. We did, so I built a new speed resistance, fanned it out, mid fan, lower fan, upper fan. It didn't draw the line out. We bounced right into that really nicely, trended in and out slightly, but more or less this was no man's land. There was all open space here, so I had to get a little Mad Hatter on it, and so I created longer, kept the same lines in the same places, didn't do anything different. I just stretched them out, and our ratios are working out really nicely, giving us good third readouts, letting us build out our speed fan so we can build meaningful forecasts here, not just drawing lines on top of peaks. And so our third gave us a stop break here, read into it quite a bit, and then we popped out of it right onto the top of the larger speed fan. We wanted to break up on here, but I didn't build this resistance, but I did note it on my Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, I noted that 599 or 6 pretty much would be a major resistance. We hit right underneath there, came back down into the lower larger third of the fan, and channeled around in there. And you can see this fan here spitting out a read possibly on a shorter term speed resistance, and now we're underneath it. So if history has been reading out the way it's going to happen here, if I want to do a midterm channel here, it looks like we're inside the channel and we're now underneath the mid fan. So what's been happening here is we fall underneath the mid fan, go into the lower fan, and in the channel we usually bounce back over the mid fan. And again, so it's looking like this is still a good read here. So if you're looking for a forecast on a time schedule, we'd want to map this out in a third. So I'd find a time frame schedule about where this trend started, which is a really strong beginning here on the trend. This is a trend, right? This is a trend. This is a trend down. This is a trend down. And so we likely started a new trend here up at the top of this wick here. So no need to wait for confirmation, I would say, if you're really looking for something to tell you what to do next. But up here, yeah, you know, these are the times when these speed resistances and thirds come in really handy. So I like leading up against this line. And again, another look at that, same lines, just different log. And also on the thirds, it looks like our time frame for building it out, right? Give us a time frame here, time frame here, time frame here. We hit this candle right on perfectly, starting a new trend like we just called. So we're gonna map this new trend out and give us another time frame point schedule. and it's reading out pretty further away. So either we run up along this, or we have another fan that we need to hit. I don't think we're gonna find a dump here, but but yeah, looks like our trades though, right? They run about the same time frame here. Seeing that too, but we had earlier trades after bigger run-ups on the percentage side. The ends of those trade out a little bit longer than these had. So I'd be looking for probably one more of these after another lead up. One more of these, and we could be possibly really seriously looking at another major move here to happen up here. But let's see what's going on, because we got to look at what's really happening too with Luna Classic, right? And we did hear some interesting news about the Strong 12 team and having some things going on the inner circle there. But to be quite honest, depending on how you want to see that news, I'm not going to really talk too much on it, because it's pretty it's based in rumor. So, and not to discount anybody from the team Strong 12, unofficial team Strong 12 or Vegas. It's just that maybe some people see it as unnecessary talk right now, and I do too, because that really has nothing to do with the fundamental aspect of Terra Classic. And I'm going to talk about some other news surrounding Terra Classic right now, aside from the Strong 12 news. And that's why you want to have multiple team members, right? You're not going to leave it up to just a smaller handful of people. The more cohesive the team, when it's larger, that begins to really show strength. And I think Strong 12 will be just fine, and I think they can work those issues out. And we like to see differences in opinion in a group. But then the thing is that you want to welcome differences of opinion too inside the group. Good. There are dumb questions, right? But not all dumb questions lead to dumb results. Only stupid answers do. All right, let's look at Solana. So Sol, very similar to what we've been saying with Bitcoin, right? We've been looking for 5 to finish off here, but it's possible though that we had it mapped out on a 3-point schedule that this was 3, 1, 2, 3 on the longer term, and we finished off 3 if this was a wave 1 for Solana. We ate really well into wave 1, enough to satisfy the rule. We were seeing Sol bake out really well on these trend angles and showing some nice behavior on the racials. And so we fell underneath this bottom third here, and we're looking like we want to pop back over it, because we're channeling in this really nicely again. However though, these channelings, these are strong lead indicators, right? So we're building strong lead angles off of this, and they're not just angles. These are strong diagonals on strong behavior trends here, and this is showing on the corrective side of the market impulse buys. With impulse buys and strong activity on impulsive markets, it's showing that the market is really reacting. About 4 shows ago is that we were about here, we're coming down on this bottom of the channel, reaching the bottom of the channel here, and so I mapped out a 62 degree based on other speed frames on history on this overflap here to give us a good readout, just like I'm doing with Luna Classic and Bitcoin, to make sure that rather than just reading the chart, right, we're also trying to forecast it too, if we can, and when to demonstrate, like when it's a good time to forecast it. And so this 62 degree angle I drew out before we cupped here, and now we're ramping up it really nicely. And this is the same thing. So mapping it on a third and using the time schedule to give us about when this should happen. We have a really nice solid looking like finishing off a good overlayer here, overflap. Right, nice overflappage on this, and we had mentioned that might not be necessary for us to come down in this bottom half here like we did here, but rather it's looking more likely that you know, if I were to take this bottom layer and add it up here instead, we're gonna actually build. So we're gonna flip-a-roo here. We're gonna do a little switch on this baby, and probably, you know, zigzag up here. But the chart's not really exactly saying that. However, it is giving us a good time schedule for this ramp on here. Is it possible we hit here and we split down again and come back into this on a longer time frame? If we're mapping it out on the time schedule, that's still at hand. So just a bit of confluence to understand there on your investment side, right? You want to use time schedules based on what you were already given and play it that way. However, immediate term, showing some nice behavior moving up here. And if anything is asking to moon here, you would want to do a read off of a soft resistance here, and something that price would want to discover again. So if market is feeling really confident, and I'll talk about that a little bit with some news, yeah, you know, you could build a roof at 56-ish, right? Maybe a little lower if you wanted to, but that gives you quite a bit of room here on the time schedule within a few days to touch 50. Break this here, start a new trend just like Bitcoin did. Sol lags, all coins bit laggy against Bitcoin. So we could start a new trend like we did with Bitcoin, popping up over this turtle heading for a bit here at near 50 or about 50, and then splitting this back down again. Talked about Akash yesterday, so naturally we want to follow it up with some charts. So I mapped this out again, got some reads, built some angles on the thirds. This probably should be 36, but I'll leave it at 35, so I'm not touching it right now. But so we're using our trend angles to run against our log hash, give us some good reads on the thirds in any department, in any way that we move it out, so we can build our good ratios here and summarize for a forecast. And so our speed fan here is shooting out this projection on the longer term here, right? If we ran this out a little bit more, is that likely? We broke down underneath it here for the lower third. Looks like a lower third here, but we split even underneath that lower third. So we rebuild this speed fan again on another third. Looks like it would probably read right over here somewhere. And this could be the mid fan now. So we're gonna find a channel. Looks like we're channeling a little bit or starting to trade here. Starting to trade somewhere around here and here. Yeah, possible. So Akash, highlighting this one because we looked at what tends to lead market cycles, and those are often low caps. Low caps are often gaming, GameFi, Metaverse, new projects, and low caps also lag markets too, so they occur to run at the end as well. So they bring confidence back in, they bring eyes back in, they often attract new liquidity. However, these cycles that have been going on, we could be hitting different kinds of times with this cycle. You know, crypto floor is running deeper, more people are getting in, while a lot of people are cycling out. A few stick, and over time more and more stick. So our base is getting thicker. And something with like a Akash network, despite all the FUD around it, we had discussed the importance of major financial players, VCs and the like, getting in. And it depends on how you want to spin that, right? A lot of it is marketing news, but it really depends on how you want to interpret that. As an investor, it's not unwise to look at where smart money and insightful investing groups that build businesses off of investing put their money. You know, what is unwise though is getting in late and or leaving late. So not saying you should leave in crypto either. It's fairly early overall, depending on your time frame. You definitely have to know your time frame. Are you a long-term investor? You know, where's your confidence, right? So on this side, Akash worked really well right into this new speed resistance trend here. Pumped up right into this speed resistance fan. We'd want to build out a new time schedule on this, right? Give us a new read. But for now, it looks like we're trying to break up into this longer term trend up here, which is a stable line. Build out our thirds against it. Looking like it's trying really hard to get there. So, and it's interesting timing with certain layer ones beginning to show and rise to the top. And Akash is really widely used by the Cosmos ecosystem. So cleaner look at Akash. Really interesting. Looks like if this is caught peak here, just about, we're on the corrective side immediately for Akash. We had our long term down 1, 2, 3. If you want to use behavior to read this out, and now we're starting a new movement here for Akash, new territory. I'll get to some news with Akash. So sticking to the charts, let's look at Shib. So Sheba getting a lot of talk too, right? In news circles, and for good reason. You know, Shib had escaped that meme coin territory, in my opinion, quite a while ago. You know, we've seen Shiba Swap emerge, and just the strength alone of Shiba Swap on the return and the utility based around Bone and Leash and other coins in the Shiba ecosystem, and how well Shiba's NFTs did. You know, it showed some really unified strength in the Shiba community, which is very, very much like Luna Classic. And Shiba came at a time where it could have been really well timed, in that a lot of meme coins were popping up and doing really well. So, and some of them, you know, rugged really hard. And some people were probably looking to, you know, be more determined about sticking in and supporting these low cap territories, these low cap projects like Shiba at the time. All right, so Shiba on a very short time frame. Looked like we had a corrective peak here, coming down. If that was the case, are we starting a new trend here? We could be channeling into a new one. So I built out some thirds as usual. So I want to use strong indications. I'm not just trying to draw lines on top of peaks and cycles. On these thirds, is that we're moving up really nicely. So we're underneath an impulse here on a time schedule, which I read out to be 144 points. The 12th being a day where something would need to happen here, but a different look on the speed resistance here. We hit this using our trend angles, our stationary trend angles, to give us a good readout on history trends. We ran up this really nicely. We mapped this out before we hit this right down here at the bottom of this angle. Ran up it. We're hugging up against this longer term speed resistance, coming down the opposite direction, giving us a nice cup. Our bowl here to shoot us up. Yeah, we had a little squiggly here like we did with Luna Classic, so we'll see. But I'm not gonna go this far. I'm capping it off right here. I put this resistance up here. Very short term, possible. So you want to look out for 18, 00018, 4 zeros, 18. But in about 4 days, put us at 144 point schedule on the 14th, which could be reading out more like the 15th, on September 15th. You know, we could fall back into this lower bowl here, but right now we're reading right into this upper bowl. A lot of strength maybe to put us up here in this upper third and run up into this channel here and pop up again. But we're having a lot of downward speed right now coming off of this upward channel, which is an interesting pressure position to be put in with these sort of readouts on the thirds. But we are fish heading like really strongly over here. So this is just a tentative read, right? If you're gonna want to make a move, you're gonna want to look for that day frame that mapped out on the major trend runs, which turned out to be 144. So on the major trend moves, starting here, you want to break it out into thirds so you can make easier reads. But this is arguably a major trend move here. And we're definitely on the corrective side of Shiba. So most likely, behavior pattern wise, we are looking for a new trend, and maybe this upward channel could be potentially midterm bearish, but depending on where we're at overall in the long term and on the time schedule, this is not exactly really reading out the way it normally would as being leading to some downside. It's possible though if we trade out flat, you know, that usually results in some exhausting of some bulls. But you know, but we're at the foot of the mountain, or we were at the foot of the mountain if this was the bottom, right? So very interesting. If this was C, that's exactly what Bitcoin was telling us, is that we had hit the foot of the mountain. And now we're waiting for some massive moves. So barring any more ridiculousness from the macro side, boom. All right, so yeah, let's jump into some news. So we talked about some macro things, right? Potentially this is what, you know, is really what we need to solve, right? Akash, you know, we talked about cloud services, distributive networks, distributive computing, you know, storage, GameFi, gaming, NFTs, audio, music type stuff. Well, I think, you know, personally, music in crypto is a long ways away. Music production has massive stranglehold on music industry. You know, I don't think that you're gonna look for them to get in first, but unless you have some major movement with artists and themselves. But all those things, what's more important to look at is what those things that are coming need infrastructure wise, what they need to be built first before they can enter the market. And that's why we mentioned that those usually lead market cycles. And Cosmos is notable because right now Cosmos is pumping, and one of the main cloud services behind Cosmos is Akash. So just to put a bit of a back history there, you know, this is a good article about what summarized article on what Akash's role is in the Cosmos ecosystem back January 15th of this year. But more or less, yesterday's show was a highlight of those sorts of things that you want to look at if you want to be early in the market. You always want to be early. You don't want to be exit liquidity. You want to be falling victim to some, you know, wag me type marketing, where marketing comes out after the fact, after pumps, after VCs get in, you know, at the hand or at foot of some major liquidations about to happen, you know, bear traps, bull traps. You know, you want to find out how to interpret the news, how to interpret the marketing. And it's always good to know what resources are sharing, you know, quality information and telling you what leads and lags markets. So here, Terra Classic, you know, charting on the trends here. Just uncharted territory for meme coins right now, and very interesting market because market's getting savvy, and it's not just any meme coin. You see a lot of marketing on Tama Doge. maybe new liquidity, but it seems like people are putting a little bit more of a risk on preference to higher potential low caps like Shiba and Terra Classic. And if anything, Terra Classic is less associated with Terra 2.0. Terra 2.0 was the fork that TELcoin initiated. He wanted that fork for 2.0, and that's the result. But here you go. IoT, Internet of Things, interoperability, transport with arguably using AI, AR, those type of ecosystems. Media, we have, proof of viewership, and you want to look at undervalued tokens, right? Undervalued plays. And VRA, I don't even see it on there, right? VRA has a proof patent of viewership, proof of view, and it's highly integrated into the esports arena, and well backed by some small South Korean VCs. So with recent news and recent turn of events in macroeconomics with inflation and things like that, we're seeing new initiatives come out of countries like Japan and Europe. Is no major exception, right? And Europe has been heavily involved, more or less, at least European individuals, more or less heavily involved with crypto. And so the interesting thing is that Europe formed the European Crypto Initiative Council, which is heavily focused on onboarding Europeans and European councils into crypto and onto crypto, businesses, even government infrastructure onto crypto and crypto initiatives. So you see here, European Crypto Initiative, their board member team. Has 3 main individuals. However, I think the actual team's closer to 60. But one of the major named layer 1s in this initiative is Cosmos. And so you're going to see a lot of potentially, and maybe that's what we're seeing now, a lot of funneling of funds into these named initiative cryptocurrencies. Coinbase is backing Tornado Cash's lawsuit against the U.S. Treasury Department, and Brian Armstrong is being really vocal about it, which is really interesting, and this article I guess makes it surprising, kind of speaking out against maybe the intentions of Brian Armstrong. However, Coinbase more or less trying to play by the rules, though, being a public company too now, and maybe beforehand had some very questionable moves. However, it's necessary as business for some to do what they need to do to make it. What's more important, I'm not like defending it or anything, not at all, not close. But what's more important to look at is the impact that it will have on your portfolio, right? And so this is really interesting, and what could be resulting from this, right? Because we talked about BlackRock partnering with Coinbase and Coinbase Exchange and Kraken as well, several shows ago. It's interesting to note that Brian Armstrong is backing this lawsuit against the U.S. Treasury Department with those sort of partnerships. So it gives you maybe a different kind of insight as to what these major financial and institutional investors are trying to do here. And could it be that, maybe Brian Armstrong is empowering himself here, or is he speaking out on behalf of a larger interest, right? And we talked about, switching of executives in large financial groups like Galaxy Digital. Where is that funding money going to go when they put it up for availability? And when you have executive changes like that, it's people switching seats. A lot of the time, those new officers, those new executives, in those new positions, they're going to be looking to make some moves, right? Or they're going to be looking to switch things up a little bit. Quite possibly, the replacement happened because things weren't working the way certain interests inside the group want it to, or it was working really well, so you get more funding. But those are some interesting things to look at when you're reading these articles. And so this is a fairly old article, but I wanted to pull it up because we've been talking about that lately. And I'm not supporting any kind of, this is not really an endorsement really, but it is, I guess, in that endorsing your opportunity, right, to make some smart moves and not get wagged, not buy because other people are telling you to buy. Exactly. But let's look at how to look at things, right? And so this is interesting news because this came right before Galaxy Digital had made that announcement to switch executives, and it's mentioned here at the bottom of this article with some other known executives within Galaxy Digital. But you see that here they abandoned an acquisition right before it was known that they made a CEO switch. So this goes to show you that when you see these sort of articles, you wanna get familiar with the space and how it might run. And I don't think it's very much different from other industries. So just a quick overview, right? I'm running down some news outlets here, and I'm seeing a lot of news on Shiba whales. We just saw an article about several shows ago where I showed you that, there are a bunch of articles being written about whales dumping Shiba and selling. But that was ahead of the announcement of the release date of Shiba Metaverse and Shibarium and things like that. And so so this is interesting now because we have news articles about whales buying Shiba. And now that the burn rate is way up. I mentioned about just 3 or 4 shows ago too, that the Shiba burn isn't working out as greatly as you would expect it to, right? So this is really strong positivity on one side now occurring where it's a flip. So what's really going on with Shiba, right? It could be leading up to some metaverse, the coming Shibarium release and things like that. There's all this talk about Tama Doge. Yeah. I pulled up this article here about Saitama and Shiba. Right, here's that article on the 600 billion buy, where we had several articles about $300 billion about dump. About a week ago or so. So this is really interesting. We just talked about the Shiba swap and how the ecosystem is really rewarding in the staking returns. On the NFTs, they often do really well because the community is extremely strong. You heard other news outlets talk about Shiba is the longest held coin of all coins, even longer than Bitcoin. That's not really old news. However, it's being recycled again. I actually mentioned that last year on my Twitter that Shiba is looking like the new Bitcoin as far as holding metrics go, and volume buy. However, the market cap is massive on Shiba, so it's going to take a lot. And I had also mentioned that there was going to be a coming burn initiative at the start of this year. It didn't start out. The burn didn't initiate the way the way I foresaw it or believed to foresee it. However, there is a burn initiative now. It's being slowly implemented quietly, and I think that the burn will really, really start to really be noticeable and effective when you have the Shibaverse. And I think that led to quite possibly maybe a hold off on the initial release of the Shiba burn earlier this year, is that there were already partnerships down the pipe coming up that Satoshi probably had already coming, so he held off and believes that maybe there's a better opportunity for that marketing. And could we be seeing it now, right? So now we see a lot of talk about burn on Shiba, and that's right at the hand of the build up to Shibaverse and Shibarium. So Saitama being another similar situation to Shiba, in that it's a considerably a meme coin. However, it looks like they're building too, right? And Saitama community arguably stuck around quite a bit. So this talk of Bone making Saitama swap, Bone being on Binance, Bone getting traded on accepted to be traded on various exchanges, and with Shiba soon to make Binance Pay when Binance Pay is launched. I think those are massive things for the Shiba Inu coin. And if crypto is looking for a seriously viewed currency, or a coin that will be used like currency, as where Bitcoin was initially intended, Shiba is primed for that. Shiba is set up to be the one for that. And quite possibly, if we've seen how Bitcoin turned out, and with this burn initiative, if Shiba becomes highly deflationary, which is not far-fetched considering the amount of utility Shiba ecosystem is building, it could really set a different standard for crypto Shiba Inu. Looking at like Shibaverse and metaverses and things like that, we talked about those sort of things, like leading the market, right? Leading eyes, leading maybe the masses or new liquidity into crypto, or at least putting new eyes on it, right? Metaverse is a keyword. It's a trigger word, and so JP Morgan looking to build its own branch and naming Metaverse, and it's no surprise, right? Because Goldman Sachs, we talked about Goldman Sachs. Their vice president once left for crypto, made his way in crypto, and returned to head a whole new department in Goldman Sachs. JP Morgan, gonna be looking to compete, right? And start their own thing. And so this is not coming as out of left field. So this is exciting too for us crypto holders, buyers. Roblox. So we've been seeing a lot of news coming out of Russia, like very pro crypto news coming out of Russia lately, and that's amid all the craziness with the Ukraine situation and things like that, and the whole Northern Pipeline, natural gas to UK especially, and at the foot of UK possibly taking on new leadership that's very pro crypto as well. It'd be interesting to know how all these things tie in, but on a very extremely surface level, we can kind of see where they do. And now we have Roblox, which has a massive Russian user base, talking about advertising Metaverse and naming Meta as a company to position itself for massive ads in Roblox geared towards the Metaverse that they're building through Roblox. So Roblox, mostly a younger generation focused economy, at least within Roblox ecosystem, which is not crypto based, not yet. But it looks like they're priming, what they're calling the a multifaceted environment on Roblox. They're looking like they're setting it up for an opportunity to enter a crypto-like market, or if not, crypto itself. So we see already Meta making major moves into the crypto market with NFTs, possibly a chain, Aptos, is connected through major degrees network to Meta. Very interesting, because Roblox is a really, really successful stock and highly traded. And with all those things, Russia, China cracking down on copyright infringement on NFTs. We saw Quentin Tarantino, getting in a lawsuit over the Pulp Fiction NFTs. So governments getting involved with NFTs, getting involved with crypto. We heard some really bullish news coming out of Japan for crypto investing individuals and companies. Japanese government's new prime minister really trying to make his way into Web3 and really building incentive for Japanese people to engage with crypto and crypto related activities. And so now Japanese government officials held what looked like a press conference of rewarding POAP NFTs, proof of participation or proof of attendance protocol NFTs, which usually can't be sold on open market, but they usually are to commemorate an event. So these NFTs, like a badge, were handed out to certain officials that were invited to this meeting by the Prime Minister, which marks a pretty major move on behalf of the Japanese government. Really very surprising and exciting too. So let's see if Japanese government is serious, about following through with these initiatives and these tax incentives. But this could be massive because Japanese people are highly engaged on social media platforms, especially Twitter. If you guys follow the Japanese reality TV Terrace House, Yama-chan was once the number one followed person, number one engaged person on Twitter, of all Twitter. And so being in NFTs, you know how important social media platforms, especially, and number one being Twitter, that could be really, really big for NFTs. So we'll see how that works out. Some recent news too about Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX purchasing about 30% of Skybridge Capital. Skybridge Capital, really interesting. They're mostly involved on the ETF stock side of tech investments. However, they name crypto industry companies and digital asset economies that they're involved in. I pulled up their portfolio here, and so really their involvement is on the stock side of infrastructure, mining, information tech, and things like that. You see here, Silvergate, Marathon, Riot, mining companies, Coinbase. So this is interesting because this is FTX quite possibly really strongly diversifying. And 30% of Skybridge is arguably probably the entirety of Skybridge Capital's crypto-focused stock side, right? And so he could have taken over that whole branch there. And they're looking to Sam Bankman-Fried to really build up, to really wait out this portfolio. So really, really interesting move for FTX, and could be extremely lucrative overall for FTX portfolio companies. All right. So, we definitely want to read into news, right? Not just read it. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. If you guys want me to look at some charts on particular coins, tokens coming up, I'm still looking at ICOs. ICOs are really, especially right now, leading into the market cycle that I believe is coming. The ICOs and things like that and pre-sales are going to be really interesting plays too, especially when we're entering into markets that are really starting to mount up. But yeah, so let's jumping on to Magic Eden, looking at some Sol NFTs. We saw some really interesting Solana NFT volume this past week. Solana really strongly retaking that number 2 spot, overall down, but we even saw a really close push to Ethereum overall. But if you look at the buyers and transactions versus the Ethereum chain, which is the number 1, and that's why we're looking at it and naming it. But even if you add up all the transactions across all layers of Ethereum, Solana just totally ready to make some massive moves when this sales volume number starts to rise with the increase in the Sol volume or Sol price. So arguably though, right, the whole market moves mostly always together. Solana is not showing any history where it's going to break away. However, we saw some major moves up, like really in really short time frames on Solana. So overall, you know, what you want to really be looking at if you're deciding about NFTs, you know, and if you follow me on Twitter, you get sort of an idea about where I'm coming from overall with NFTs. But on this show, you know, I talk about them and highlight them and, you know, document some buying activity, trading activity on it. You know, NFTs are highly, highly risky, and the NFT ecosystem is very, very infantile. It's very new, so there's a lot of room for some certain actors to take advantage of buyers and sellers and so on. But overall, looking at it from a positive view, an infrastructure building view, which we want to do, Solana is really set up on a historical side to be very meaningful with NFTs. And so is Wax and Flow, arguably. Binance has a really, really powerful ecosystem, but it's somewhat closed. And I know CZ, you know, we're a big fan here of CZ, Binance. He's always on the move. He's always got some good plans. He knows how to navigate the crypto world. So Otherworld hit higher than 2 SOL on a number of occasions, pulling back really hard. A lot of these pumps are coming off of collaboration one-of-ones, you know, and that kind of hype. So it's clear to see why there's pullbacks, because a lot of these one-of-ones, usually with projects, especially right now, is that it's based on accumulation. So usually airdrops go to people with the most NFTs, and usually that'll be people who got in early. So if you're highly convicted and you've been holding or accumulating along the way, you know, you're getting rewarded right now for having, you know, the most amount of NFTs. However, people who are getting in midterm or later, you know, they're paying higher prices, they're not getting rewarded, right? So that's why we see this major fluctuation. Lurkers also released their tech side, their techno lurkers, which is an AI version. AI meta still moving along. You really have to be a strong project, really strongly based project, for your AI version to do well. Techno lurkers are still minting at 0.2, so we'll see how it goes. They've been really pushing for their separate community. They got their own Discord now. So eventually, you know, I do foresee lurkers sticking around. The team seems very, very serious about the project. They're very into it. They're very hardy. They're very well conditioned to, seems like, the NFT world and NFTs and Solana. So they've navigated FUD. They've managed it really well, and they're still sticking to it. It just so happens that lurkers came off of a massively hyped mint. You know, it makes sense with the art, but their draw-offs on floor are a direct result of, you know, having the type of roadmap that's kind of oversaturated right now in the space. You know, everybody's trying to do collaborations, one-on-ones on art. So lurkers' strong suit being the really high quality of art and collaborating with other projects, turning their style of NFT into a lurkers themed style, and so on. And I think that the Masked Ape collab, and I'll talk about Dent in a second, but things like that are really great moves. AI, again, really have to be strongly based, pretty oversaturated AI moves. But lurkers team, I'm sure they will hit their stride at some point, as long as they stay strong. And this main art is really, really cool. So not a lot of shoulder to hand type NFTs either. So we'll see what they do. I made some suggestions in the Discord. We'll see how they do. I like the idea of an AR version of their masks on us, like maybe through the phone. You can take pictures and share it on social media or other projects. It's one of the ideas mentioned. Lost Pirates is one of those AR projects. I'm not sure if that dev, the AR building dev, is still part of this Lost Pirates team, but I believe that he is. You know, Lost Pirates have a AR-based treasure hunt, which is awesome, really awesome. Environment turns into like usually a pirate ship or some kind of pirate theme environment, and you search for soul, usually in a hidden treasure box. Super cool. You gotta use the Snapchat app though for it. So maybe eventually, possibly they're working on building out that on their own dapper platform. But there was a recent partnership on a research library with Research Library, and Research Library is offering a utility on what looks like a NFT portfolio. So I partially used it. I say it looks like because I couldn't really get a good read on what was trying to be accomplished with that portfolio. However, Research Library, now looking at the videos that they're posting, seems really well updated. Could be a really interesting play, an early move on a really hard long-term pullback on Lost Pirates, which is really excellent art anyway. So we'll see. But partnerships could be fruitful in the short term for these sort of projects that have things to offer on the utility side. Degen Sun Gods, I like the art here. You know, that's always the number one, right? You want to have the appeal right away. Saw a nice write-up, but I'm not sure if it's the right time for new projects unless you just really have a takeoff like Just Worms did. But even Just Worms pulling back pretty hard too now. However, Sun Gods community, pretty interactive. I was in there, you know, shuffling it up in the mix, throwing out some criticisms on top of it. But overall, you know, I enjoy Sun Gods, enjoy the community. You know, I know it was pretty clear that a lot of us were trying to light some fire to get some excitement going. And we quite possibly, some of us were probably successful because we saw, you know, the likes of Big Biceps enter Sun Gods and become a part of the team in some way as an alpha caller, maybe an advisor behind the scenes. So that's cool, you know, because Big Biceps making a name for himself lately, which is awesome. I shouted him out for his calls, or his quality of calls, at least his consideration on how he lays them out. You know, they're really well thought out, and I think it's unique, you know, for an alpha caller. You know, not gonna, you can make your own decisions about the quality. What I mean is like the turnaround, you know, the gain. But the thoughtful explanations are appreciated, and I know that they're not appreciated just by me. So really excited to see his name pop up in the Sun Gods and on the alpha side. Really adds a level of formalism, you know, professionalism to the game and Sun Gods team. So I think Sun Gods here to stick around. A lot of talk about rug, so really just presenting a better opportunity on the floor for accumulation, because I think they got some things coming up on the pipe, and their collabs are looking pretty good, you know. And we just talked about how collabs are oversaturated, and that sort of marketing play is oversaturated, but there are some projects that can do it really well. Sun Gods could be one, but Soul Deads is definitely one that can do it very, very well. The Mass Tape, the recent Mass Tape and Soul Deads collab, that art looks awesome. It's gonna do well. Soul Dead's side collections, the tribes, the 101s, you know, we're seeing the chalices at like 30 plus soul floors. It was really cool to catch an AMA finally with the Soul Dead main dev Arson. Really cool to hear him talk, and one of the co-founders, or probably the founder. Extremely promising, really exciting to hear him mention some really key things like you know, his long-term goals, which is stretching outside of NFT ecosystem. So he plans to get involved outside of the NFT ecosystem, and he's already making moves to make it happen. And if you've been following the show and you've been following So Deads, there's a team, if there's a team that can make it happen, like they've been making it happen with the art and the collabs, SoDeds can do it. And the Masked Ape collaboration happening just about right now. Really good art for one, but we expect that already, and we're getting it from SoDeds. But what's really interesting is that both of these communities are on the come up, on the rise, and really well backed by their community members. So not gonna be totally out of the cards to see both projects really start to hit their stride now, and the floor price to be reflected. And jumping back into the AMA conversation on Twitter Spaces, and so OGs being addressed. It was really interesting how the team laid it out, SoDed team laid it out, and that the OGs are really your key to moving up the SoDed chain collective, I guess you could say. That's where I'm not a huge fan of mutating. I like to keep the OGs. You know, I'm into collecting, so the original is usually in my eyes the best, right? And it's the most sought after. However, in the immediate term, though, the one of ones and the mutateds are highly valuable as well. And we see a stronger meta for that in Solana NFTs than we do in Ethereum. You know, being if you take Bored Apes, for example, versus mutant Bored Apes. So while on the art side, the mutateds are usually an upgrade in some sort of way, as we're D-gods. You know, you do see dead gods having maybe a little bit more of a use as far as profile pictures go for the art side. As I mentioned, I like the originals, but for the original collection on SoDeds, it could be extremely more meaningful for the OG holding. It makes me excited because I'm one to hold the OG collection, and the OG collection usually gets left behind by the mutated versions, especially on Solana. So I really like where SoDed's team's vision is at. So we see here SoDed's really moving up and down, but that threshold bottoms and are getting higher. So we're not seeing as much of a drop off, and the rises are getting more intense. And yeah, so there you go. A few of them that I like to look at. Definitely one of my like to be in these. I enjoy being in these projects. Skull Club I'm still not in. However, I had been talking about it throughout the show on several shows. I really think that head-only PFPs are really going to be well liked going forward. You know, only because I think that the new aesthetic is going to start to take foot with new users, and I think that the head-only PFP is really eye-catching, really simple. It's generally appealing, and you can do a lot with it. And as far as the composability, the composition within the profile picture frame, like on Twitter too, it lends itself really well. And it's not over cluttered, but you can clutter it too. So I think that head onlys are highly undervalued, and we've been talking about Skull Clubs since about 0.2 or a little bit less. Now we see it here at 0.85. It could be highly lent to the Wastelanders collab, and could possibly see a nice pullback there. If it pulls back well enough, I might actually finally get in on this one. But I liked it. I like this project a lot. I've just been kind of occupied with other things. Kikiverse, same thing. And we've been talking about that constantly on this show. I really like Kikiverse. It's one of the very, very few plays on Solana NFTs that has the serious potential to really make it outside of the NFT ecosystem. And it's got the art to back it as well. Now it definitely looks like it's taking on new eyes and investors that are also equally serious about moving this project forward. So good to see. Really nice. We were watching Kikiverse, 0.12-ish. Even saw a pullback at 0.09 on the show. But yeah, it was nice to follow this on its way up. Kikiverse too. If I get an opportunity, I'll get in. As long term, this is likely a very, very good play. Scullies, not shit in my bag here, but I got a decent amount of Scullies. I like Scullies. They're loosely or maybe closely affiliated with Burrito Boys. Burrito Boys, I don't really hold. I trade them a lot. I showed you how and why on previous shows, but I do like Burrito Boys a lot. Although I don't know, I don't get very much of a response from the team, even though maybe they don't watch the show. So, but I like Burrito Boys. Talk about them all the time. Scullies, though, as I said, loosely affiliated. Pizza Pals and Burrito Boys. Scully's doing something a little bit different. They are talking a lot about, giving back to the community in different ways and outside of the NFT ecosystem. However, what I really like about Scully's is that they're really trying to make a strong move into merchandising, which is not really new at all. But I like their move into merchandising because I think that they have a really good idea of the niche that they want to fit in. So I think that their business and marketing plan are spot on. So it's a slow riser, slow gainer, because I know that they're waiting for revenue. It's a really low cost mint, and they really didn't hit it out of the gate either. So yeah, I was glad to support the team. Still holding, and head only PFP. So we'll see how it does. Right face too. Not that really hugely matters. Who knows? All right, let's pull up one more. Builders Collective. So I had a show a few shows ago where I talked about Builders Collective attached to apexcrypto.xyz. And cool project. They're building a build to earn for developers, specifically geared towards a raid to earn style quest board for developers who are looking to solve problems on GitHub, propose problems on GitHub or through GitHub on the software and open software side of development and Solana focused. So some really interesting potential here on this play. Don't mind supporting it on that side for those reasons. And this could be a play. I really don't know what kind of upside this really has. I don't really know what kind of demand there would actually be for a quest board for developers through an NFT project to access and get rewards. But it's worth finding out, I think. And so this collection, when participating on their quest board to solve issues raised on GitHub, you get the Epic style coin, EPCT, and possibly EPCD, or you trade one for the other. So it could really well be dependent upon how much those tokens are valued. If they're going to start an LP, and I did name the amount of liquidity that was going to go into the LP initially, I think it was 50,000. Which would be really interesting if you have a high take on this project, and because usually LPs can often get drained if there's not enough cycle for the coin. So this could be one where the cycle gets kind of really subdued. It really requires high amount of engagement. In other words, it's software development, it's software issues needing to be solved, it's quality assurance on open software. So really, how fast can that turnaround occur? What kind of problems are really being looked at, and how often are there problems going to be solvable and coming up for problems to be solved, and how many problems are going to be needed to be solved, and how often, as far as the liquidity in the pool, is it really going to just mostly be traded by buying and selling of the actual token rather than the earning of the token, which could really lend itself really well to a really nice payout if so. As I said, that the earning of the token could be highly subdued and quite possibly monopolized by probably just a handful of builders that know how to solve problems or are more successful at solving them. This is interesting because it's calling itself a Genesis play. Japanese team, highly engaged with Japanese media, and I think Builders Collective could really do something here, as long as it's, yeah. So, yeah, there you go. Another day in the crypto world. We'll definitely revisit some of the coins that we've been talking about, but I definitely want to start introducing a few more. I'm not gonna spread it out too much. We'll always focus likely on Bitcoin. I'll start to bring Ethereum back in. We have the Ethereum 2.0 supposedly ready to launch in about 10 days from now. So I had mentioned in a few shows ago that if it's any indication with other launches, in the crypto market arguably being a little bit more savvy these days, is it possible that the ETH 2.0 is not going to be as reflective in the price action until maybe people start to see the actual functionality or operational changes in Ethereum, and that'll actually start the real movement on the Ethereum price. And if that's the case, with the success of Ethereum, I think that has a higher likelihood, if it works out in that way, to really start the onset of a massive move and really kind of sweeping along the entire market, in a massive move up, and really spur or jumpstart this next run, this next cycle that is really starting to reveal itself in the charts as well. On that note, have fun, trade safe, thank you.